Okay, this guy is an Emmy award-winning designer, director, CEO, chief strategist of Blind, the founder of The Future. Now you know who I'm talking about. The Future is an online education platform with the mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make what they love. He's been teaching design for over 15 years. He's lectured all over the world. His company has been recognized by a bunch of organizations. He talks about design. He has experience in negotiations, mindset, branding, social media marketing, business management, and client relations. He has millions of subscribers and followers on his social media platforms. And what I love about him is how he summarizes everything he does. I help creatives build businesses and business leaders build brands. So, Chris Do, thank you for your time. Welcome to NP Cast. Chris Do, thank you for your time, dude.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Perfect. Dude, I gotta ask you this. After all you've done, I mean, you've been doing a bunch of stuff. Would you mind telling me how old are you, man? 200? You do a lot of stuff.
I should be. I'm 52 years old.
Oh, nice. Too young for doing a bunch of stuff. Perfect. And where are you located now?
I'm in Pasadena, California. I moved here 2 years ago.
Perfect. Okay, so I said a bunch of stuff about you, but now you tell me, who is Chris Do?
Oh, okay. I'm a loud introvert. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a recovering graphic designer. And some people would describe me as a charming razor blade.
Nice. And how you got into design?
I got into design because I was working at a silk screening shop, and I thought, like, what am I going to do with my future? I'm in high school, and I met a real life graphic designer while running an errand, and he was working on the earliest beige, Macintosh 512K computer. And I was just mesmerized that you can use a machine to help you draw more precisely. And he would print things out. I'm like, I think this is what I want to do with my life. So at that moment and point in time, I had the clarity and the vision, like I could see myself doing this for the next 20 or 30 years. And it led me to going to Art Center and pursuing and getting a degree in graphic design.
Nice. And when was it?
This is in the early 90s. So I graduated in summer of 1995.
Okay. So how old were you at that time?
I was 22 years old. I had to put my portfolio together, and I spent a year doing that. And then I got my portfolio, and I was accepted. And then I spent about 4.5 years to get through Art Center.
So you realized in 20-something years that it was something that you would like to do in the next 20 years. I mean, was that your purpose of life?
I don't know if I would describe it as my purpose, but I had a curiosity around design and visual things, and I think I had a skill for it, and I didn't realize it at the time because I didn't know what a graphic designer does or what one does as a graphic designer. But I was always intrigued by emblems and crests and graphics and things. Like I think for me, skateboarding and the design of the decks was a gateway drug into design because I bought boards more for their design more than the shape or the pro rider. I could care less. I was just like, this board looks really cool from the design point of view. I remember also looking at all the college universities, and I was picking the universities based on how cool their logos were. All the Ivy League schools had the best logos, in my opinion, like Harvard, Princeton,
Nice.
Yale. They have really interesting crests and badges, and that's like, oh, those look great. Well, that's the work of what graphic designers do.
Nice. And how you got succeed being a designer, or it started when you built your own company? How was it?
I guess I tried working for people for a little bit, for a few months, and it didn't work out for me. I'm not patient, and some people said I'm unemployable because I have too many ideas and I want to do things a certain way. So I thought, okay, fine, I'll start my own business. No clients, don't know what to do, don't know any process, don't know how to bid, don't know how to do sales or marketing. But I was armed with a portfolio and this belief that I could take on the world. And so in December of 1995, I started Blind and continued working on that. And slowly but surely would build a small reputation, and then got a couple of opportunities based on the relationships that I had to then go out and do something big, work on a national car campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And do you think, I mean, if someone wants to start a company, does this person have to work for someone before he builds a company? Was it helpful for you?
I think it was, in hindsight, a little bit foolish to start a company without enough business experience. And like I said, I only worked for 2 different companies for a few months each, and I didn't see enough about how businesses run. I got a glimpse of it, but mostly I was in the making aspect, the craft of design. I worked in advertising and I worked in entertainment, and I didn't see enough business parts. So I really struggled the first 2 years, how to do a new business call, how to do bidding. I didn't even know what the rules of engagement were. So looking back, it's kind of embarrassing, like how I handled those conference calls with really big clients with big budgets. We're talking about 6-figure budgets, and not being able to land them and just being devastated. Like, oh my gosh, I'm losing another job. Like, I got to figure this game out. And I kept thinking, maybe I need to go work for somebody and be in the room, as in the Hamilton play, the room where it happens, like where the business calls are happening, not the room where design is being had, but in the business room.
Got it. And how did you get here? I mean, after Blind, you still have Blind, right? How did you create the future? How'd you come until today? What have you been doing?
In 2013, 14, a friend of mine from school, Jose Caballé, he's like, let's go make YouTube content together. I know you want to be an educator. I'm an educator. Let's combine forces. Let's try to do something together. And I'm like, do we have to do this on YouTube? This seems really strange. I just want to teach. And he said, no one is going to know about our product unless we create content. This is a brand new idea. First of all, making product, doing content marketing, and building sales funnels and understanding how customers work. We had clients. We didn't have customers. And so slowly but surely over the next, I think 2.5 years, we started to build up the YouTube channel together. And at some point, we had different ideas about how to run this education company. So we broke apart, and then the future was born in 2017, I believe. And it would take another year before we could stop doing client work. So we're working in 2 companies in parallel. First, there's Blind, a service design company making commercials and music videos. Then there was Future doing content and educational stuff. And so eventually in December of 2018, we stopped doing client work. So Blind only exists as a name and our website. We don't do anything with Blind anymore because we don't do client work. So we look at our freedom date, freedom from client work, as December of 2018, the last time we took on new client work.
Got it. And can you tell me a little bit more about the future?
Sure. So the future is, I think, my purpose, because you asked about purpose. I don't think my purpose is in design. My purpose is in education. And there's something I talk about a lot when people are struggling to figure out who they're supposed to be in this world. There's this Japanese concept called ikigai, and it combines these 4 Venn diagram circles, and the overlap of which is your ikigai. Yep. So there's what you're good at, what you love, what pays well, and the additional element of ikigai, and the way it's interpreted in Western culture, is what the world needs. And so when you complete 1 or 2 circles, you can have some kind of fulfillment, but not complete. You could be rich but bored, or you could be happy. You could be rich but bored, or happy but broke, or something like that. What you want to do is find the overlap between these 4 Venn diagram circles. And for me, believe it or not, it was through making content on YouTube. I combined my passion, my skill, my love, my identity for education. I brought in my knowledge and experience, what I'm good at in terms of business. I brought in the video production and the crafting of stories into this, and my entire my portfolio and history of design into this. So I was able to be 100% as much as possible myself. And this was the unlock for me. This gave me tremendous joy and purpose, and it started to drive the growth of the channel and a new business.
Got it. But Chris, most of the people, they think that being rich is something that will bring happiness for them. Why do you think people think about it?
Well, I think people have this whole grass is greener mentality. It's always better what somebody else has. So if you're happily married, you think it's better to be single. And the single guy who's dating a lot, it's like, I wish I could just find one person to fall in love with to be, my partner for the rest of my life. It's always that way. So when we don't have stuff, we don't have the basic necessities, or we're constantly worried about money, then it seems like to be happy, we need to be rich. But I live in neighborhoods where there are very affluent, rich people, and they don't look very happy to me. And they're dealing with other kinds of problems. So having more money solves some problems, but you inherit new problems. But being happy, and I forget who described this. I think it was a comedian or an actor, I can't remember, who was asked this question, what's the purpose of life? And then he responded, to enjoy the passage of time. That's the purpose of life. And I think that's what being rich really means. To have wealth means to be able to choose what you do, who you do with it, what you love to do, to do that, to do it with who you love for as long as you want and wherever you want. So the problem with rich people is they have the money, but they don't give them the freedom. So they're just in the pursuit of more money versus what the money buys or affords them, which is flexibility to do more things versus more work.
Yeah, and you have authority to say that because you've been dealing with like a bunch of millionaires and billionaires, and it doesn't mean they're happy 100%, right?
Yeah, but it's not to say that rich people aren't happy. It's not a guarantee for happiness.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, where are you from? America? You're born and raised?
No, I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and I came to America in 1975.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you speak Vietnamese language?
A little bit, yeah.
Is Vinh Nguyen, I don't know how to pronounce his
Vinh
name.
Giang?
Vinh Giang, yes.
Yes.
Is he from Vietnam as well?
I think he was born in Australia, but his parents are Chinese Vietnamese. Yes.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
You know him, right?
I do know him, yes.
Yeah, I've been pursuing him, trying to record with him. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
He helped me a lot to, I mean, I love to help people, but I've been like freezing for the most 10 years, I would say, because I'm always afraid of, what people is going to think about me. Yeah. Even in Portuguese, I don't speak English very well, but even in Portuguese, which is my language,
yes,
I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can teach. Everybody can find everything on the internet and etc. So I started following him, and he's so like natural, but he teaches a lot. I mean, you don't have to be natural. You can like learn techniques and etc. So he's an amazing guy.
Yeah. I think
Nice.
whenever we look at something from an expert practitioner, it always feels so difficult for us. But the expert practitioner breaks down the steps step by step into small bite-sized pieces. And they give us these tools that then if we follow the tools and we apply them, that at some point in our life, we can achieve some level of mastery, maybe not to the level of our teacher, but we can get there. And I think that's the true sign of experts. Like if you can explain it simply to other people.
Perfect. I'm just curious. I saw your post on LinkedIn saying that you want to talk to 300 people. Am I right? Is there a reason for that?
I'm sorry. What did I say?
Well, there was a post on LinkedIn that you want to record, like doing videocasts and podcasts with 300 people and help others. Is there a specific reason you want to do that?
I'm not sure which specific one you're talking about, but I like to work at scale. So I have this mission, and I didn't get to talk about it, which is to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. And I know if I'm talking to small groups of people, I'm never going to get to that billion count. So I always force myself to think bigger and bigger and bigger, because there's no way you're going to reach 1 in 8 people on planet Earth if you don't think that big. So it might have been in connection to somebody asking me a question, but it's like I need to speak to bigger stages And YouTube, the internet, podcast, it has the ability to reach an infinite number of people. And so I have to get on that media wagon and just keep making content.
Got it. But why 1 billion, man? That's a lot. I mean, that's amazing at the same time, but why 1 billion?
Well, when I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a big, hairy, audacious goal, BHAG, a bag. Okay. So people in the mindset space say, oftentimes what we do is we fail because we set too big short-term goals and too small long-term goals. So we fail because the short-term goal is impossible to achieve because it's too big. Or we set a long-term goal that's too small and we actually achieve that, which is the disappointment of life, right? That doesn't seem to be it. It's like ambition. And so I'm trying to set my own big, hairy, audacious goal. And I'm thinking, well, okay, 1 million. Let me teach 1 million people. But given our social channel and all the content I create, I think we're already there. We're past 1 million because we have 2.4 million subscribers. And we do the math. Not everyone who watches a video is a subscriber. So we're probably reaching 10 times as much, like let's say 20 million. So I don't know what the next number is. Million, billion. Let's just go with a billion. It's a big round number. And it doesn't matter if you achieve that goal. I think Jim Rohn said this, big goals are important, not in that you actually achieve them, but it's more important the person you become in the pursuit of those goals. Amazing. So the reason why we set big goals is like, I had to think big. I can't be sitting around trying to like talk to 2 students in a room somewhere. That's not big enough. I have to keep thinking bigger.
Amazing. And it's our motto here as well. I mean, think big. We have 3. Think big, own it, and have fun, which is very important as well. Okay, let's talk about branding. In your point of view, what does branding stand for?
Okay, there's 2 components and we have to break them down. So a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. That's a definition from Marty Neumeier. I like that one very much. Jeff Bezos says a brand is what people say when you're not in the room. So that's about reputation. So brand is the totality of a bunch of different touch points and creating opinions about a person or a thing or an organization or service, right? So when enough people have this similar gut feeling or impression of you, then you have a brand. If they're all different, then you don't have a brand. Okay, so that's what a brand is. So what is branding? I think branding is, and I'll use my friend Dr. Christine Lucer's definition, impression management. It's influencing the gut feeling and creating a user experience that's consistent with who you are and how you want to be perceived. So one is the definition of what it is. The other is the act of influencing it. Let me say it a different way. Brand is having positive or negative associations with something. That's it. So when you think of like a reliable car, what brand do you think of? What do you think? What would you say?
Ferrari.
That's the opposite of reliable car, but that's okay. You know, most people would say like a Toyota or Honda or something. You never break down 150,000 miles.
I think big, man.
Well, when I say think of a sexy car, a high performance car, a car with lots of personality, what would you say?
Lamborghini.
Lamborghini, Ferrari. That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Expensive cars, status cars. So what they've done is over a period of time, they've created a positive association with their name. And that's really what brand is. So creating a positive when you're doing it right versus negative association.
Got it. Perfect. Amazing. And what is the best way to create a branding strategy?
Would this be for a personal brand or a corporation? Because they're a little different.
Yeah, it's very different for both, if you don't mind.
Okay, what do you want me to start with?
Okay, personal.
Okay. A personal brand and how you craft this, if we understand the definition of brand, is going to be a lot more difficult or different than a corporate brand because it's representative of one person, you, the human being. Yep. Okay. And I often will say creating a personal brand is not so much an act of creation, it's an act of remembering. What do I mean by that? Okay. So when we are educated, and I use that word carefully here, when we're educated, we learn to fit into a group of people in the way that they think. So we're socialized to behave properly, to not to say things or do things that would consider abnormal behavior, because then we get punished. You're in detention, you go to the principal's office, you're held back a year. So what we do is we're getting stripped away any sense of difference or personality so that we're all the same. And there are some really smart researchers who talk about the origin of our education system comes from the British Empire, and their desire were to create human computers, right? So if they sent you to war or to dig a ditch and a rock fell on your head and you died, they wanted to put another person in so they can keep digging the ditch or keep firing the gun. So they created an education system that we were interchangeable. So in order for the interchangeability to happen, we have to kind of be similar or the same. So this is a problem. So the education system that we've inherited stamps out individualism and any kind of personality. So when I say that building a personal brand is about remembering, is we have to remember who we were as that rambunctious 5-year-old. When we ran around without our pants on and we drew on the walls and we dreamt things and we were saying what we thought and we were full of love and emotion and we're just pure and honest, sometimes good and sometimes bad. We have to remember who we were, our passions and that personality that made us unique and different. And so we have to go backwards in time. So when we talk about personal branding, we have to figure out, A, what's our origin story? Like, who are we? What makes us us? And I break it down in a couple of different ways. Number one is, where were you born? Where you're born says a lot about you. You asked me early on, were you born in the States or somewhere else? I said Vietnam. As soon as I said Vietnam or Saigon, something came up in your mind. Okay?
Yes.
This is what they call cultural currency. Okay? You're okay. Brazilian. I think certain things are Brazilians, right? Love, laugh, food, a vibrant culture, you know, and a mix of different cultures, right? We also think of the Brazilian butt lift when we think about other kinds of things, you know, and that's an exercise, everybody. It's not plastic surgery, okay? We think about, do you guys, what do you celebrate? Carnival?
Carnival, yeah.
Yeah. And we
Not
think
everybody likes it, but
right,
yeah,
but we think of these
Brazil.
things. We think of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We think of these amazing mixed martial arts fighters, right? We think of lots of things. Okay. That's cultural currency. So where you're born says a lot about you in terms of people's perception. And also your parents and who they are impact you too. So where you're born is number one. Number two is, where do you choose to live? Now, I'm curious, do you live in the same place you were born?
Unfortunately,
more or less?
Yes.
Okay. So that says something about you. Whether you like it or not, it says something about you. There are people who are born in one country, lived in another, and then moved here, and they moved all over the place, but they choose to live somewhere. So I'm that way. I chose to live in Los Angeles. I've moved around in 5 different cities in Los Angeles, but I've mostly stayed in the greater Los Angeles area. But when I say to you, I'm from LA or Pasadena, what are your impressions of people who are from Los Angeles? What would you say? Good and bad. What are 2 or 3 things?
Good. Like, they are smart. They're probably rich, because I know some people who live like in Beverly Hills and some places like that. And they are like very ambitious people. They know what they want to perceive, and they will achieve that. This is what it comes to my mind.
Perfect. This is perfect. And then what about some negative things about LA?
I would say violence.
Okay.
Not in everywhere in LA, but it's something for me that's huge. And bad traffic as well. It sucks. The 405, the 10 freeway, a parking lot. We see all these images and we know. So those are very true things. You might also think a lot of plastic surgery. You might think of like really flashy, because we see a lot of flashy people living here. Fancy cars, bright colors, you know, all that kind of stuff. Glitz and glam, entertainment capital of the world, paparazzi. You think of ultra healthy diets, like these crazy macrobiotic things, and Pilates and yoga pants. So those are all the associations. So when we talk about brand and branding, so now I haven't even told you anything about me, but if I told you I was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and then I live in Los Angeles, all kinds of preconceptions and ideas about me, some of which are very true. Okay, you can then make the assumption I'm an immigrant. So there's something about the immigrant story that you might assume I'm successful. And you could be right or wrong, but then a narrative starts to build in your mind. So when we talk about a person's gut feeling, now people who know nothing about you, just by telling them 2 things, where I was born, where I live, it tells a story already. Okay? So when we continue on,
when I teach people how to do personal branding, the next thing I ask them for is the defining moment, the moment you become you. You can't do this with kids. You can only do this with adults. But somewhere along your timeline, something happened in your life that changed you forever. Okay? And the way they do this in story structure is there's the ordinary world and then there's the new world. You leave the ordinary world and you go into the new world. It's not literal, it's metaphorical. And something happened. I'll tell you mine. So when I was working at that silk screening shop, I was sent on an errand to pick up some typesetting. I didn't even know what typesetting meant. And I meet this guy at his house. His name is Dean Walker. And Dean welcomes me into his house. And he's like, you're early. I'm not done. You mind waiting for a little bit? And I'm sitting here watching him work on a computer. And to me, that was my defining moment. My world forever changed when I walked into his home office, because I previously thought designers and creative people were people who were beggars on the street painting portraits or airbrushing your name on a t-shirt. That was really my only exposure to like a professional artist. Mm-hmm. But then here I'm meeting this guy who's designing a logo on a computer, earning a living. And so for that moment, this thing that was not real became very real. It became tangible. And I was like, I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. So that's my defining moment. What is yours?
Dude, I would like to ask you in a few minutes if you got stuck in something, because it was a good stuff for you, but did it happen something bad that you got stuck and you felt like, dude, I gotta know myself better than I know because I can't give the next step. You got what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
But I want you to answer my question first.
Yeah. So there's one thing that happens to me. I live in the same city. It's not something that I love to, because here in Brazil, São Paulo is the city that everything happens as far as business go. So there was a moment that I was completely tired of working with advertising agencies. Like, I worked hard, very, very hard. I lost a bunch of parties in my own house, and I used to call my wife like, okay, tell everybody that I'm not coming because I have to work. So I was completely tired of it. So then, and I hated the possibility to be an entrepreneur as well, because I thought life to me, I know it's not easy. Anything is easy. So I was like, I don't want to have my own business because I know that those people, they work hard. And it's a lot. It means like holidays and weekends and etc. But I realized that if I wanted to build my own stuff, I had to build my own business. So I was fired of my last job. And then I decided to work with marketing and knock company's door and try to sell my services. And then I met Neil Patel, which is my current partner. And let's say the aha moment for me, I was having a marketing course. It was traditional, not digital. It was like 11 years ago. And the teacher, he was like, dude, you guys need to learn digital marketing, because this thing in Brazil is growing a lot, but it's grow like crazy in the next 10 years. So you should study digital marketing. That's the reason I'm here. I called my partner, Saulo Medeiros, my current partner, and he told me about Neil Patel. Dude, you got to learn digital marketing with this guy because he knows a bunch of stuff. So read about it. And then months later, I was like, dude, I can text this guy and say, you should translate all your content in English from other languages. You would like build an empire in the whole world because you have like an amazing content and it's for free and you can have your own agency in a bunch of countries. So I texted him. I sent him a direct message on Facebook. Then I got his email and I pitched him like, okay, I can do everything for you. And it was just me. I didn't have a team. I didn't have anybody to help me but Saulo and Caio, which is my other partner. And Neil said yes. okay, let's talk about it. First time he said no. No, I have no time. I'm strapped for time and etc. And then 2 days later, he said yes. And then we started talking, and here we are, like 20 countries, more than almost 800 people. So to answer your question and to summarize, it was the time that my professor told us, you need to learn digital marketing.
There you go. So when you go to tell that story again, you want to highlight that moment, that transformative moment, and you want to edit out all the details before and after so that it becomes very clear. Because otherwise people get lost in the story. So if you're asking me about how to do personal branding, I say, everybody think right now about the moment your life changes. What happened? And why were you resistant? And so you tell just the part of the story that makes that part make sense. And then you have the flip. Your professor says digital marketing. You're like, okay. And then you go and learn it. And now everything is different. Your whole life has changed. Does that make sense? If we look at popular culture, because when I teach this, I use a lot of pop culture reference. I say Spider-Man, Peter Parker, right? So everybody knows Spider-Man. He's like one of the most famous characters from the Marvel universe. Yeah. So Peter Parker is a brainy kid, scientist, and he's skinny and he gets picked on and things don't work well for him. But his moment, his life changes is when he gets bit by a radioactive spider, giving him the proportionate strength and agility of a spider, right? And he has a spider sense, and he invents his own web shooters, and he becomes Spider-Man at some point. But his life cannot be the same after that moment because he sees the world in a new way. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're looking for. So this is how you start to develop personal brand. There are a bunch of other points I can get into, but that's essentially like us learning about who we are and being able to tell our story to others so they have an impression of who we are.
Amazing. So you think I should be more straight to the point, shorter, or
you have to be shorter?
How I could?
Yes. And I'll tell you something that my business coach told me many, many years ago. He said, you have to have a repeatable story. Okay, this is how legends are built. This is how stories spread. We know the story of Romeo and Juliet. I'm sure you can tell it to me. You know the story of Icarus. You know the stories that have David and Goliath. Everybody knows the story. Or the tortoise and the hare. Because the stories are simple enough in their structure that we can remember them and we can add details where we need. So what happens with a lot of storytellers is they add too much unnecessary story arcs and too much detail where it's not necessary. You strip it down, you get to the core, and then the transformative moment happens.
Perfect. That's a masterclass for me. Thank you. So what about companies? What companies should do?
Okay, so companies are very different. So companies all have a founder, and they are inspired by an idea, a way to improve the world, according to them, and they make something, a product or service. And in doing so, they build a whole bunch of people around them, and then they're able to do this at scale. And so what happens is, as we go further and further away from the founder and their story, let's say it's been 20, 30, 40 years, there are now people who work at the company who don't know who the founder is or their story at all. So then the brand that used to be reflective of the values and the beliefs of the founder have disappeared. Is they lose their way, they lose their voice. So typically what they do is they hire an external person, agency, marketer, brander to come in and say, hey, we want to figure out what your brand voice is again. And through the research, we found out it's Colonel Sanders, and he has 11 herbs and spices, and he was like 70 or 80 years old before he met, so that they can bring that voice and that personality back, sometimes long after the founder is dead. And they tell that story again because it reconnects people, the company, the culture, the community, and their customers back to their origin story. The difference here between a personal brand and a corporate brand is a corporate brand is decided by a committee of people making, I think, strategic business decisions. A personal brand, you have a committee of one. You're the chief executive officer of you. And so we don't have to worry so much. And here's the weird thing. Corporations realize that no one falls in love with a corporation. They fall in love with personalities. That's a line I borrowed from my friend Yo Santosa. People don't fall in love with corporations. They fall in love with personalities. So corporations, which are faceless, they're kind of a legal entity. They're not a real thing. Like you can't touch a corporation, right? So what they do is they try to inject personality. So corporations are trying to be more like people. because people have personalities. So here's the weird thing. People look at corporations and they're like, well, that's how you have to behave to be a big company. So now what they do is people, oddly enough, try to act like corporations, which is a mistake. And I'll tell you what I mean. So when a corporation, a corporate brand wants to run a campaign, what do? They hire advertising people. They bring on strategists. They do focus groups. They run it by legal. They do risk assessment, and they do all these kinds of things, and then they say something. And usually what they say is pretty watered down because they're afraid to say too much because it'll alienate people. And over time, if you keep doing that, you have a non-brand. Okay? And there's a test that we can do to see if you have a brand. The test, I think it comes from Seth Godin, it could come from somebody else, is say, if you take a brand outside of their core competency and ask, what would it look like if they did something else and you can't figure it out, they have no brand. So I'll give you the example. Hilton Hotels. Wow. Are you familiar with Hilton?
Yes. We're going to stay there next week in São Paulo with Neil.
You could edit this part out in case you lose a sponsor or two, okay?
Okay.
If Hilton made a camera, could you predict what that camera would be like? If Hilton made shoes, if Hilton made apple pies, if Hilton started a coffee shop, what would it be like? And if you're like most people, like, I have no idea. You might say middle of the road, somewhat affordable, but kind of generic. Well, that's not a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
The second test for a brand, if you have a brand or not, is if you apply your logo to another product, does that product have increased value? Here's the example. Let's say a t-shirt costs $8 to buy, a generic basic t-shirt. If you apply the Hilton logo to that t-shirt, does the t-shirt sell for $8.01, $9, $10? How much of a premium does it command? Mm-hmm. And you would say, probably no premium. I mean, I know some people buy this. I'm probably insulting a few people. Like when they stay at a Hilton, do they go to the gift shop and buy a Hilton t-shirt and say Hilton Bahamas, Hilton Sao Paulo? I don't know anybody that does that, but I'm sure some families do, right? Because for some families, I'm sorry if I'm being dismissive here, think of Hilton as the high point in their vacation. Most people don't.
Yeah.
And I was talking to, what is his name? Alan Dibb, who wrote the book, The One-Page Marketing Plan and Lead Marketing. He said, I want you to look at that price that you charge above as the amount of goodwill you've created. So if it's $8 for a t-shirt with no logo and $100 for a t-shirt with a Supreme logo or a Louis Vuitton logo or a Y3 logo, then Y3 has created, in essence, $92 worth of goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
This is a powerful concept. People need to understand this, right? So if you can't extend your brand to a product category that you're not in and no one can figure it out, you have no brand. If you can't command a premium by applying your logo to another product, you have no brand. The easy example is say, if Apple started a hotel, could you imagine what that would be like? And most people would say yes. If Apple started an energy drink, could you? Yes, of course we can. If Apple created anything, you would know because they have such a strong brand. They passed the first test. Second test, if Apple puts their logos on things, is that thing more valuable? And you can say probably, hell yes, because that's literally what they do. Mm-hmm. There's what was affectionately referred to as the Apple tax. The phone would only cost $400, but because Apple's logo's on it, it's going to cost $800 now. So they have 2x goodwill. Okay, so that's a corporate brand. So the personal brand, what we don't want to do is we don't want to sound like a committee of people decided what we're going to say. We did risk assessment. We ran it through legal. And unfortunately, people are so afraid of being canceled or not being liked or criticized for saying something. So if you have a personal brand and you say generic things that I can't hear your voice in it, you have no brand.
Got it. But let's say someone wants to start a business. I mean, that being said, and it's amazing what you said. Is it more relevant for this person to build a personal brand instead of a business brand? Or it depends?
Very good question. Okay. It depends on what you're trying to do. I'm not saying everybody needs to build either. We know this. Not everyone needs to run a business. In fact, not everyone can run a business because who will work for the people who run businesses? So now we're like separating the population to a certain weird, rare breed of psychotic people who want to start a business, because they're just crazy people who want to start a business, right? Because you think you can change the world. So you need a little bit of that craziness in you. Okay, great. Now, as an entrepreneur, you may have zero personality. You may not care to speak and to be an authority or to do anything. So you're going to focus almost all on the business, and you can be very successful doing that. And the business is going to have your founder story, which is why you created this business. Let's say, for example, you're an accountant. And I know I'm making a lot of general statements here, and forgive me, guys. Send all hate email somewhere else. Don't send it to me personally, okay? Let's just say you're kind of a typical accountant. Yeah. And you're kind of boring. You're wearing suits that don't fit you, and you have almost no personality, right? You're not interested in things outside of numbers. You're very data, binary centric, But you know what? You figured out a way to help small to medium-sized businesses make more money because you've invented an app that helps them make more money. So you're trying to make the world better to create this kind of positive change. Well, the story and the brand of this company, let's call it like Tax You or something like that, stupid name. And you're like, you know what? We'll tell the founder story that they were at this point and they're working with customers, small to medium-sized businesses that were failing in America. And they felt this deep connection to want to give the everyday person a fighting chance to have their business be successful. That's an endearing story. That's a story people get behind. Now, they'll push you into the background here, right? Because you're not that interesting, but the founder story is interesting. And so from this point forward, they might write a tagline, tax to empower you or something. And that starts to tell that story. And that's okay. You don't have to build a personal brand.
Got it. But don't you think that sometimes some companies, they're lying, saying that they have stories behind it? Let's say, for example,
Yes.
I have my own business. I just want to be rich. I don't care about people. I don't care about helping anybody. I just want to be rich. How does it work for a company like that? This kind of company, they have like future in this world?
I think less and less. I think in the industrial age, for sure. Mm-hmm. We looked up to companies that wanted to be titans of industry, like steel industry or whatever it is, or lumber. They didn't have to do anything except for to go make more money, and just they ruled with an iron fist. They would use probably market forces in their favor, their tremendous resources to clobber and destroy competition. So they became the only choice. And that model works when humans can't talk to each other. But in the age of social media, you and I, we can talk whenever we want. And not only can we talk, our conversation can be shared for 1,000 people to listen in on, and we can influence those people. So if we have a bad experience with a car company, with a hotel, we can go on social and say, I had a really bad experience. The people who are not kind, the customer service is terrible. In fact, my hotel or my car had all kinds of problems. Guess what? They can't spend their way to stop us. And we're going to have these conversations, and we're going to have more and more of these conversations. Here's the proof for you. I don't know about you, but I shop a lot on Amazon.
A lot,
and
like
today,
crazy. And even in the United States, my partner
right?
lives in Vegas, so I
Yes.
have a bunch of stuff in his house.
Yeah, he takes it for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's the deal, right? So it used to be that when I wanted to buy something, I would go on to review sites. I would read CNET. I'm like, what's the best stereo? What is the best Wi-Fi router? I would read all these reviews, and then I would make a decision, and then I would go and buy it. Amazon has done such a great job because they figured out a customer pain point. They now have reviews, ratings, so that I just type in whatever I want, Wi-Fi router, and boom, it appears. The top results appear, and the highest reviewed product appears. Mm-hmm. And it's in their best interest to give honest and accurate reviews so that they don't alienate customers. So if I buy that Wi-Fi router without any research, it arrives and it doesn't work as promised, first of all, I'm going to send it back. It's going to cost them money. But number two, trust is going to erode such that I can no longer trust that. But now, like I said, I don't know about you, I just buy things automatically just because they're well reviewed on Amazon. Mm-hmm. And they facilitate a sale happening faster. So that's a beautiful thing. This is what's happening when we're talking about peer-reviewed products and services. So just because a company says we're a great, consistent, loyal culture business doesn't mean it's true. Because the associations I have with it are the exact opposite. They can no longer control that. And so companies that just want to make money and destroy people and relationships and the environment, their days are numbered.
Nice. And I like that. It was time. So
It is time.
I do not buy any product on Amazon with the ratio below 4.5. That's my number. Sometimes my wife, she's looking for some stuff and love, it's like 3.5. You're gonna buy it? You sure? And she was like, oh, what is the problem? No, it's 3.5. Don't buy it. So I only buy with 4.5 plus.
It's
now,
working.
Chris, it's working a lot. Chris, from an employee's perspective, do you think everybody should build their own brand?
I don't think everybody should build a personal brand, but I encourage a lot of people to. And I'll tell you why. Number one, building your own personal brand, I call it job insurance. And I'll explain. So I don't know about you. Do you have life insurance?
No.
You don't have life
Brazil,
insurance? Okay.
No, in Brazil,
do
but
Okay.
I had to.
Do you have auto insurance? If
Yes.
your car crashes your car. Do you have home insurance? Like if it catches fire, you don't have that either.
I do.
Okay, you do.
I do.
Okay.
And health insurance as well.
Health insurance, you have, health insurance and auto insurance are yes for most people, most countries, right?
Yeah.
And why is that? Because if something catastrophic happens, you don't want to be financially bankrupt. You just don't want to, right? And we don't want to pass that burden on to other people. So if you're ill, it's like now your wife, your parents, your children have to like keep working for the rest of their life to pay for old bills. That's no good. But what no one has, or very few people have, is job insurance. What do I mean by that? If tomorrow you work for a Acme company and you think you're moving up into upper management, you're going to get a C-suite level position, and all of a sudden they have bad financial reports and they have to lay people off and you get cut, what's going to protect you from your job? Nothing. So what happens is when people get laid off or fired, they start the job search. And we know that process can take a really long time. When you start developing your personal brand, you create content, you build awareness around you, two things are going to happen. Number one, if you're good at it, people are going to start to recruit you immediately. So they're going to say, hey, Chris, are you happy working at Acme? We'd love to bring you over here. And they already know something, and you know it too. They have to offer you a better title, better opportunity, more freedom, or more money, and sometimes it's all four. And you're like, no, I'm perfectly happy. They're like, okay, if you ever change your mind. Then one day, something unforeseeable happens. You lose your gig for whatever reason. You can reach out to any one of them like, hey, I'm free agent again. Who's looking? And then you can reach out because you've been having this relationship, that dialogue. So the time between job and new opportunity is going to be very short. We know people that have been in the job market for months, if not a year plus. They can't get a gig because they have no job insurance. They have no personal brand. They've done nothing to help themselves. So this is why, even as an employee, you want to have a personal brand. Number two, an important reason. When the parent company, especially for small businesses, talks about something, if you're able to amplify that voice by sharing it to your network and talking about it, you benefit, the company benefits. So when they're looking to promote people as head of comms or a leader, and they have 2 or 3 candidates to consider, I think all things being equal, they're going to go with a candidate who's more visible, who's more perceived as a thought leader, who can amplify what they want to say, because leadership is about communication.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I agree with
this
you.
is why.
Yeah, and I've been talking to a bunch of people like after I realized that I shouldn't be shy and I should started producing content just to help others. Dude, I think everybody should be a creator. I mean, not from a influencer standpoint, you know what I mean? But they should help somebody. Even if you like help just one person. But if you create something, if you help just one person, and then in the future you can help like 5, you can help 10, and then it's gonna get back to you in good stuff. So it's harder to be unemployed, let's say that, if everybody knows you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Perfect. But so let's say there's a entrepreneur or even a company, they do not have like enough budget. How to get started in branding?
Well, branding, you have to understand, is a long-term play designed to create value over the length of the life of the company and what you're doing. So it's not a short-term thing where you just dump money into and then you forget about it, because it's about the relationships. It's about the touch points and the user experience, the customer experience. And if you ever dream of selling your company one day or building sub-brands or other things, you need to invest in this. So if you don't have the capital, the resources, the willpower to do this, then I don't know what to do to help you. It's like, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to eat better and I don't want to exercise. I don't know, because the thing that fuels it is capital and resources and energy. Okay. Now, there's a good chance that if you want to build your brand and you don't have money, then you'll have to do all the work yourself. And you could do that, but that means you'll be somewhat diluted in your efforts to run your company. So you kind of have to think about this. Probably the best resource I can share with people is to read the book Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, the late founder of Zappos. What I thought was remarkable about the book and the lessons that he shared is that branding that's done for low margin companies like shoes, he's like, the margins are very low, can be done at almost no money because it is born from a cultural perspective. The culture at Zappos is their brand. And that permeates through everything they do, how they treat their employees, how they hire them, how they fire them, and how they treat their customers. It all filters from this core value of their culture. So if you have no budget, read that book, understand how to build strong core values that you live by, and the brand will emanate from that. Famously, he said in the book, forget brand, get the culture right, the brand will follow.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for that, man. It's really amazing. It's good. So let's talk about marketing budget. A bunch of people ask me this, and I'm not sure if I have the right answer. We have the long-term game and we have the short-term game, okay? So
Yes.
How much do you think companies should spend on both branding for the long run and performance for the short run?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They live on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? There's short-term revenue, which is done from performance marketing or direct marketing, because direct marketing and performance marketing is measured against ROI. $1 in, how many dollars out? Return on ad spend, those kinds of concepts. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is long-term brand value, which you cannot write a check on, but what you're doing is you're increasing the value of your offer and the relationships. And if we get back into the whole concept of branding, what you're trying to do is to develop a deep, emotional, irrational connection with your community. Like when people are willing to make extra effort or pay that premium goodwill for your products and services, first of all, you command a higher market price. You're less insulated from the swings in the marketplace, that when they have to choose, they'll still choose you versus a competitor. So you're building moats against competition, which is important. But you have to have enough runway in order to do this, because it takes money, time, energy, and effort to build brand, as we've already talked about. So I think we have to spend a blend of our energies against both. We have to do some performance marketing so that we have revenue, because we have to play the game for as long as possible. But Seth Godin says, play the infinite game. We want to play for as long as possible, because whoever fails the most wins. Okay? Now, if you go all in on performance marketing, you're like, great, revenue, that should be great. But what you do is you run the risk of alienating customers when you do performance marketing all the time. It starts to feel like noise. The relationship, instead of being transformational, feels very transactional. And we have to be careful about not to do that. And then if you go all in on branding and you build these amazing customer experiences, it takes a long time for that to return on your investment, and it's not as direct as performance marketing is. We have to find that balance. Each company is going to be a little bit different. For me, I apply the 911 rule when it comes to creating content. Okay? Like 911 is an emergency in the United States, right? Because I say people, your brand is dead, it's comatose, it's on life support. It needs to be resuscitated. Call 911. That's the way we remember it. It's a heuristic, right?
Yeah.
So 9 things that you do should be in creating value for your community. It should be educational. It should be inspirational. It should be motivational. It should be tools. It should be things that they need to transform their lives. One time you do something super personal and something weird, so they understand who the person of the company, the brand is. So we're not necessarily always in teacher value mode. We once in a while do something for us. And the last one is an ask, a call to action, a direct sale. If you're interested in this, please contact us. We want to sell you this. We want to help you with your digital marketing. We want to help you with your personal branding. We want to help you with building websites. So 9 pieces of value, 1 piece that's personal, about the personality, a personal story, and 1 call to action, which is a direct sale. I think that's the ideal formula, 911.
Amazing. Chris, dude, I'm speechless, man. I have no words to thank you for your time now. I know you're strapped for time, so I would ask you like 20 other questions here, but I really appreciate our time here with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I enjoy the questions and the dialogue.
Perfect. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks.